Last week, software development for me was frustratingly slow again. I really wanted to get through things faster. And upon reflection, I realized I'd fallen into one of the two biggest time wasters in software. Now, the two biggest time wasters are pretty much polar opposites. On the one end, extreme, you've got writing software almost without thinking. So no planning, you just sit down, this is what you're writing, and you start writing. And it's a time waster because you might get going faster, but you haven't done any planning into how you're structuring your code, so you end up getting stuck. And you end up needing to rewrite your code over and over and over. And of course, rewriting code takes a lot of time. On the opposite end is overthinking and agonizing over every design decision. And that'll certainly cut down on the code rewriting, although it won't eliminate it entirely, because quite often when you're overthinking, you don't actually have all the details and the experience that you need to make the most effective decisions. So you can still end up, and what you want, what the specifications are, what you're trying to write can change, right? So you can still end up having to rewrite your code, but it certainly cuts down on that. But then you spend so much time thinking and agonizing over what you're doing. If you work in software, you probably tend more to either one or the other. I'm guessing for most people, unlike me, they tend towards the overthinking side. I know I have this tendency. I would like to write the perfect thing, the perfect software first time around, even though I know that's not possible. So last week, that's what happened. Although at the same time, when it comes to planning, I seem to miss a lot of the underlying support code that you need. So, for example, with CTFTP server, I'm working on the user interface, and it's web-based. And one of the settings for the user interface is that you can set the port numbers that the server appears on, so that you can bookmark the user interface in your web browser. Now, being able to change the port number means that you need to be able to redirect to the new port numbers, which in turn, the URL parser and URL builder that I'd written, I'd only implemented the bare minimum features that I needed at the time. So, okay, that support code needs to be updated. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it's yet another detail, another thing that needs to be done. Next thing, the HTTP server needs to be able to dynamically restart without killing all the existing connections. So yeah, another thing to be done. And then later, I'd like to be able to display the server's IP address for ease of use. And I didn't have that code yet either. And I didn't think about it when I was trying to figure out how long everything would take. And lo and behold, getting the local machine's IP address, there's no platform independent way of doing it, and there are these niggling little issues that you have to deal with. So anyway, there's this building up list of little things that each one of them may not take all that much time, but it just adds up. And then on top of that, I realize I'm trying to future-proof all the design decisions so that I never have to rewrite any of the code. And I'm paying for it by the lack of progress. So I think when you're working in software, you need to know what your tendencies are. If you're in the habit of writing code without planning, that's great, by the way. Writing code without too much planning is great when you're just writing a quick test code which you're planning on throwing away anyway. But if you have that habit, then yeah, you need to train yourself to show restraint and to do some planning. If you're like me though, and you're on the tendency of overthinking, it might help to bear in mind the experiments that have been done in the quantity versus quality area. So the story is, ceramic teacher decided to run an experiment on a class. So half the class got told they would be graded on quantity. So you make a lot of pots, ceramic pots, you get a high grade. You produce less, you get lower grades. And on the other side, they only needed to make one pot, but it had to be the highest quality ever. And so the students go away, and each following their objective, their given objective. And at the end, to people's surprise, the highest quality pots came from the group that was instructed that they would be graded on quantity. And the reason for that, it turns out, and apparently this experiment's been run on different things as well, and the results are the same. The reason for that is that as they're making these pots, they get to experiment and they get to learn from their mistakes. So they have this sort of fast loop of trying, maybe failing, maybe getting better, and learning in each cycle. Whereas the ones who were focused on quality were doing things very slowly, and they just got through fewer of those loops. So if you're on the overthinking side, worth bearing that in mind. Although I have to say, I knew about that for years, and I still find myself, like last week, it's like, oh, I've done it again, overthinking. Anyway, that's it for this week. If you find this video useful, I recommend you subscribe. Otherwise, see you next time.